For most of the second millennium AD, Central Europe is divided into a patchwork of states and only really starts to become unified towards the end. It takes centuries for its people to start to see themselves as German. Who are they? What is their past? Questions about 1,000 years of German history. This is Frederick I of the House of Hohenstaufen, elected King of the Germans in 1152. His realm stretches all the way down into southern Italy. But he harbors a wider ambition, to become Emperor of the West. Powerful rivals challenge him, one of them his former ally, Henry the Lion. An important visitor to the Eternal City, the citizens of Rome haven't seen a German king for 2 decades, but the guest from the north is by no means welcome. Because of his red beard, the Romans call him Barbarossa.
I'm not comfortable among these Romans. This isn't what cheering looks like. What are you doing in Italy anyway?
An empire without Italy? No, Henry, no emperor without Rome.
Ancient Rome and its Caesars, an eternal role model for Europe's later rulers. The traditions of the Roman Empire have been associated with the German kingdom since the 10th century. The Germans have now been co-rulers of Italy for the past 2 centuries. The Pope crowned the German king Otto the Great Holy Roman Emperor in 962, making him the protector of Christianity in the West. Frederick Barbarossa from the House of Hohenstaufen is the 10th German king to wear the Roman imperial crown. The newly crowned emperor is accompanied by his cousin, Henry the Lion, Duke of Saxony from the Welf dynasty. Henry sees himself as an equal to Barbarossa.
What about you, Henry?
Should I fall to my knees before my cousin?
Not before your cousin, before your emperor.
But Barbarossa owes his elevation to dukes like Henry. They have the right to elect the German king. But the imperial crown puts him above all of them. The emperor is crowned by the Pope, and he wants to be at least his equal.
Contemporary sources portray Emperor Frederick Barbarossa as being of average height, with a red face and blonde hair. And his red beard, of course. He probably wasn't a great beauty, but he must have had great charisma and invested a great deal in an imperial aura. That was unpopular with some.
Not least in Rome. The proud Romans are particularly self-confident at this time, and an emperor who really wants to rule uncontested needs to court their favor. But the people of the Eternal City rebel. They haven't been asked about who should be emperor. The Pope had decided alone, possibly influenced by Frederick's magnificent gifts.
Shields to the emperor!
Barbarossa and his entourage are surprised by the anger of the Romans. They're in danger.
Stop!
Henry the Lion shows his control of the situation.
I thank you, cousin, for your courage and loyalty.
Everything for the emperor and his realm.
The lion proved worthy of his name. He was to not let Barbarossa forget it. Frederick I has come south as king. He returns as emperor. If Barbarossa wants to rule in the north and south of his empire, he will have to cross the Alps, a difficult undertaking. His empire in the middle of the 12th century. He is king of the Germans and wields imperial power in Italy and Burgundy. But the powerful Welf, Zeringen, Babenberg and Wittelsbach houses rule in the German world. The House of Hohenstaufen's own lands are mainly in the southwest. Trifels castle in the southern Palatinate is considered impregnable. Frederick Barbarossa comes here often. The House of Hohenstaufen will shape German history for almost a century. The king returns home. He brings peace to a land inhabited by 6 million people after decades of upheaval. 90% of his German subjects are peasants living in the most basic conditions. Kissing the hem of the king's garment is meant to bring good luck. Barbarossa is also a nomadic king, moving from palace to palace like his predecessors. There is no actual center of power. Gelnhausen Palace on the Kinzig River, not far from modern Frankfurt. Barbarossa had it built. The red sandstone ruins are evidence of a once magnificent castle compound that combined a courtroom, royal court and accommodation under one roof. Among the traces the royal builder left behind, we can also find his heraldic beast, the eagle.
The eagle was already the symbol for world rule during the empire. Barbarossa, who made great use of ancient symbols and traditions from the Roman Empire, took it up, and it has been a symbol of the Holy Roman Empire ever since.
A reconstruction reveals the ideal imperial palace. It symbolized the very idea of empire architecturally. The ground floor, the floor for subjects. It's the supporting foundation for the rule of the imperial family, who live on the first floor. Above the emperor's floor is the level of the Reich, the empire. Laws are proclaimed in this hall. This is where synods and imperial diets take place. The throne is reserved for the king and emperor. The center of the empire is wherever he happens to be, and Barbarossa's empire grows during the years of his reign, not least westwards. Würzburg in 1156. An event of European importance enthralls the bishop's seat on the River Main for a few days. "34-year-old Frederick Barbarossa is getting married. His bride is 16-year-old Beatrice of Burgundy. It's an international dream wedding. The minstrels of the realm vie to outdo each other in praising the beauty of the young noblewoman, as witnesses to the events reported. The Chronicle of the Bishops of Würzburg says, in the weeks after Whitsun, Emperor Frederick wed Beatrice, the daughter of the Count of Burgundy, in Würzburg, and consummated his marriage. The consummation of the marriage of Beatrice and Frederick is to be witnessed by dignitaries from the empire, from England, France and Poland. In the legal understanding of the day, it was an important act of state necessary to validify the union between the emperor and the countess. For both, the marriage is primarily a political union. The wedding was depicted centuries later in a monumental ceiling fresco in the staircase of the residence, the bishop's palace in Würzburg. Burgundy is part of the empire again, a peaceful conquest. In the north, the emperor's cousin Henry the Lion rules as Duke of Saxony. He has his heraldic emblem erected in front of his castle in Braunschweig. It is likely that work on the largest map of the High Middle Ages, measuring almost 4 meters in diameter, started at his court during his lifetime. It's a monumental testimony to the attempt to reconcile the teachings of Christianity with new geographical insights. Jerusalem still lies at the center. At the top of the Ebstorf map is the head of Jesus Christ. He holds the world together. The map, which is drawn on a leather base, was completed by Henry's successors. The arms of Braunschweig, the ancestral seat of the Welf dynasty, portray a fearsome lion. The inspiration came from the lion monument in front of Dankwarderode Castle. It was a bronze work spectacular for its day.
The bronze lion of Braunschweig is a symbol of the Duke, who said of himself in an inscription on a coin, "I, Henry of Braunschweig, am the lion." And indeed, the lion is mankind's oldest symbol of power, from the ancient Oriental empires to the Greek and Roman empires. Bronze is an imperial material, and by using it, Henry put himself on this highest level.
On the same level as the emperor, Barbarossa and the Lion, face to face. Also made of bronze, but gilded, the Kappenberg head of Barbarossa. Frederick had it made during his lifetime. It's more than a mere portrait. His head rests on the walls of Rome, the symbol of the Christian Roman Empire that he rules. But something is missing. A headband, a diadem like that worn by the Roman emperors? Scholars believe it looked something like this. It also symbolizes the fact that the Pope was not the sole ruler in Rome.
The Kappenberg head of Barbarossa is a really good way of expressing this new self-confidence. The empire is symbolically placed at the same level as the Holy Mother Church. Barbarossa wants the Pope and Emperor to be equals.
The fight for this equilibrium flares up again 80 years after a previous showdown between Emperor and Pope at Canossa, this time in Besançon in Burgundy.
Rolando Bandinelli has arrived. He's an emissary of the Bishop of Rome, our Pope.
There are reports of the meeting between the papal emissary and the emperor that hint at a new showdown. The words spoken in the name of the Pope sound innocuous at first.
Gaudemus. In Erinnerung an die Vorteile.
But there's disagreement about the Latin word beneficium, which means favor, but can also be translated to mean fief in the feudal sense.
I received my imperial honor as a fief bestowed by the Pope.
Who else would bestow the crown upon the emperor, if not the Pope?
Silence this Roman whore.
Wait.
Emperor Frederick in no way sees himself as ruler by the grace of the Pope.
Tell your lord that we have received the crown of our empire from God, and not from his insolent servant. The empire is sacred. Sacrum Imperium. Let him go.
The ruler of an empire that's holy doesn't need the blessing of the Roman Pope. The expression Sacrum Imperium shows up for the first time in an imperial document of 1157. A short while later, this Holy Empire becomes the Holy Roman Empire. The addition of the German nation only comes 300 years later.
This is how an important part of the imperial title was created under Frederick Barbarossa. The name Holy Roman Empire emerged and dominated German and European history for more than 600 years.
It's not just Rome that's part of the imperial territory. Northern Italy is too. But the affluent cities south of the Alps are particularly resistant to the imperial claims. Barbarossa feels cheated out of his rights and the lucrative tributes. He goes to Italy for a second time in 1158. A chronicler said of his entourage, "The number of troops was so large that even several roads were barely able to hold them all, a horde of young men who confronted the vicissitudes of war without fear." The intended destination of this march is the center of the resistance, Milan. The city's consul has called a citizens' assembly to answer the impending threat.
You brave citizens of Milan, do you want to be obedient to the arrogant Germans and be subject to their laws? Do you really want to suffer this in your lifetimes? Let us die like men before we suffer the Germans' arrogance and tyranny. What man could bear the arrogance and conceit of the Germans?
The arrival of the German knights creates a sense of unity in Italy. But in light of German superiority, most northern Italian cities open their gates and submit. Only the people of Milan are resolute in standing up to the German emperor.
Milan was a huge city. I'd say Milan had a population of 100,000 at the time, an enormous city, far bigger than anything in Germany. And that was precisely why Barbarossa had to have this total victory under his belt in order to prove his imperial position.
The siege of Milan goes on for months. After heavy fighting, the city in Lombardy is finally forced to surrender unconditionally. One of the most flourishing cities of the West is burned to the ground. The citizens of Milan can save only their lives and whatever they can carry. At the height of his power, Frederick shows no mercy.
These people of Milan challenged their emperor. I was forced to punish them for that. They have no one but themselves to blame for this fate.
But it is a dubious victory. The German army rampage gives birth to the phrase furor teutonicus, not least because the destruction is coupled with an historic theft.
What's in there?
The mortal remains of the three kings.
Do you want to take them from the people of Milan?
The Holy Empire needs holy kings.
Barbarossa has the relics of the Magi taken to Cologne. This attracts pilgrims to the city who will later donate a lot of money for a monumental construction project, Cologne Cathedral. An old tradition was only revived at the start of the 21st century, the cathedral pilgrimage to the Shrine of the Magi. It's one of the most significant pieces of the high medieval goldsmith's art, containing the mortal remains of those who saw the King of Kings, Caspar, Melchior, and Balthazar, making them influential patrons of the city. Who knows that their remains have been looted from Lombardy? They helped the city on the Rhine flourish. Pilgrims gave lots of money. While cities like Cologne grow, others are still to be founded. Henry the Lion was given the Duchy of Bavaria by his cousin Frederick Barbarossa. Laying down markings on a green field, he decides to found a market town called Munichen, which means at the house of the monks. Henry wants to go down in history as the founder of a city. 3 centuries later, the capital of the Duchy of Bavaria would have a population of more than 13,000. Munich became a center for trade, commerce and culture, one of the great cities north of the Alps. And after the Second World War, it became the capital of a self-styled free state that has remained particularly jealous of its autonomy. Henry the Lion has monuments erected to himself in northern Germany too. He lays the foundations for cities such as Lübeck, Braunschweig and Schwerin. He highlights that there are powerful German dukes too, not just the emperor.
Barbarossa pursued the traditional imperial policies that he had to pursue because Italy was part of the empire. Henry the Lion, meanwhile, tried to expand his ducal role beyond the borders of the Duchy of Saxony.
In the second half of the 12th century, the Duke's troops move north and east. Slavic territories, seen as pagan lands, are conquered and colonized. Even with just the 2 duchies of Bavaria and Saxony, the Lion is one of the most powerful rulers in Europe. His advance is just the start of a German expansion eastwards, where further duchies will be established in the future. Mecklenburg and Pomerania, for example, but also the state of the Teutonic Knights. Marienburg, now Malbork Castle, near the Polish city of Gdansk. A huge fortress, one of the biggest brick buildings in Europe. A symbol of German settlements in the east, started by Henry the Lion and continued by the Teutonic Knights. Braunschweig Cathedral is also built by the Lion. The powerful Duke exhibits a positively kingly self-confidence in his chosen home. His marriage to the daughter of King Henry II of England contributes to this. The Gospel manuscript that Henry has made for this occasion is priceless and confirms his vision of his status. One depiction shows Henry and his wife receiving their crowns straight from the hand of God. It was a sign of growing insolence. In the eyes of other dukes and the emperor, the Lion is getting ready to pounce, to create his own Welf realm. The magnificent rooms of his palace seem to confirm his ambitious claims. In the 19th century, Dankwarderode Castle was reconstructed in the style of the time.
With Dankwarderode Castle, Henry the Lion in around 1170 built himself a residence that lacks nothing a king's palace would have. The power base the Lion was building for himself in Saxony, Bavaria and the Slavic territories put him in a king-like position. The scale of the power he wields was increasingly seen as a threat by the emperor and the other dukes. He was throwing down the gauntlet.
Goslar, the Silver. forever.
The lion stands up to Barbarossa. When the emperor asks him to come with him to Italy to put down rebellions in Lombardy, the lion makes demands. The silver mines of Goslar.
I ask you, as a cousin, friend and fellow fighter, follow your emperor to Italy. It won't be at your expense, but you won't get Goslar.
Without the silver mines in Goslar, the emperor wouldn't have any funds himself.
In that case, may God be with you, cousin. I won't.
Are you so certain of your power, Duke of Saxony? The empire has made you great, but it can crush you again too.
Henry refuses to participate in the military campaign. He's not violating any law in doing so, but he is still snubbing the emperor. An empire stretching from the Baltic across the Alps to the Mediterranean can only function if Barbarossa manages to incorporate the northern Italian territories in the long term. And he needs the wealth of the Italian cities. But the Lombards don't want to be part of an empire ruled by Germans, nor be its paymaster. Just a few years after Milan's destruction, its citizens have returned to their city and rebuilt it. Lombard troops face Barbarossa near Legnano. Open fighting breaks out between the free citizens and the imperial forces in May 1176.
Battle formation. Close the ranks.
The Lombards aren't just fielding a force twice the size of the imperial army, 16,000 against 8. They're also fighting for their freedom. At stake is how far the German king can actually extend his power as the Holy Roman Emperor. Who will set limits to a claim that seemingly knows no limits? So when Barbarossa's banner falls, he hasn't just lost a battle.
German historians long downplayed the Battle of Legnano as having had little after effect. But the actual after effect lies in the victory of citizens over the knights, combined with an anti-Teutonic resentment that persisted in Italy for a long time.
Every year, on the last Sunday in May, the people of the small town of Legnano commemorate the dramatic events of the year 1176. A letter written by the people of Milan to their allies right after the battle also confirms the historic victory. Beloved fellow countrymen, don't put our triumph over the German invaders down to our arms. The laurels of victory rest on the unity of all Italians, whose proud will rebelled against servitude. It's the first time national sentiment has developed south of the Alps, an Italian one, in opposition to the Germans. And their rulers are torn between the duties of a German king and the claims of a Roman emperor. Barbarossa has made enemies, both in German territories and in Italy. His dream of a unified Holy Empire, has it failed? The 1177 Congress of Venice marks the biggest peace conference in European history to date. Its aim is to strike a balance between the interests of the Germans and the Italians, the Emperor and the Pope. Years earlier, Barbarossa had put the Roman pontiff in his place. Now the ruler of the Holy Roman Empire has to submit. From now on, the motto is, the Pope is the true emperor.
The Peace of Venice in 1177 ended the emperor's attempt to create direct rule with his own people in office in Italy. He lost the trial of strength with the Pope. Now a scapegoat was needed, and that was an opportunity to settle old scores.
Since Henry the Lion refused to support Barbarossa in Italy, he is now held to account. At the imperial diet in Erfurt, he tries to assuage the emperor through an act of submission.
Forgive me, my emperor.
Your remorse comes too late, my lord.
Zu spät.
You're punishing me because I didn't follow you to Italy.
Ihr wart nicht zur Heerfolge.
You weren't required to join. You said so yourself.
And yet, you're taking me down because of it.
It's about the honor of the empire. The verdict stands.
Of course, it is a verdict that he has also reached at the behest of the German dukes who felt Henry the Lion had become too powerful. The fall of the Duke of Saxony is sealed with the Gelnhausen document. As a result of clear insurgency, Henry of Braunschweig is found guilty of insubordination. He will be stripped of all the fiefs he received from the empire by the unanimous verdict of the dukes.
There was no legal requirement for Henry the Lion to obey the imperial military call. But he had a moral duty of loyalty to the emperor. The emperor hadn't just supported him out of a sense of duty either. He was right to think Henry would do things for him in return. We don't know why he didn't. Maybe he just underestimated the conflict and its consequences.
The Lion is exiled to England. He plays no further significant role in German history. Henry is buried along with his wife Matilda in Braunschweig Cathedral, which he paid for himself. But his son will achieve what the Lion did not. At the start of the 13th century, he, Otto IV, will be the only member of the House of Welf to be crowned Holy Roman Emperor. But even then, he won't recover the territories his father lost. Barbarossa distributes them among the other dukes in a way that ensures none of them will ever again become as powerful as the Lion.
You, Otto of Wittelsbach, shall have Bavaria. You, Philip of Heinsberg, Archbishop of Cologne, shall have Westphalia.
Erhältst Westfalen. Und du,
And you, Bernhard of Anhalt, shall rule in Engern from now on.
sollst fortan in Engern regieren.
But the fact that Barbarossa bestows these territories on the German rulers in the first place shows that he still needs their support.
The redistribution of Henry's lands demonstrates the rising power of the dukes in the empire. It's becoming increasingly important to them to be able to freely elect the king and therefore the future emperor. It's a right that never existed in this way in France or England, an elected monarchy instead of a hereditary one. That's an important special feature of German history. And it wasn't long before this principle was enshrined in a historic document, the Golden Bull of 1356. Our federalism, the strength of the states, has, if you will, its early roots here.
Whitsun, 1184. Emperor Frederick is hosting an enormous meeting of the Imperial Diet near Mainz. More than 70,000 participants are expected. Dukes, princes, knights, bishops and their entourages, famous poets and musicians. It was a superlative event of which the Saxon World Chronicle said, "It was the biggest celebration ever to have taken place in the German lands." The sheer size and splendor of the Diet of Mainz makes it a social highlight aimed at distracting attention from the defeat in Italy. Barbarossa wants to demonstrate that the empire is wherever he is, and that he, as emperor, is preeminent amongst Europe's rulers. 20,000 nobles are in attendance. Barbarossa wants to grant them new privileges and bind them closer to him. Guarantors of his power, ready to defend him, loyal and dependable against enemies within and without. Tournaments aren't just military exercises. They're the major competitions of their day. Anyone wanting to make a name for himself has to win here. The highlight is the joust. The participants have to bring their own horses, they have to control it with bridle and spurs, and they have to be able to hold the lance. Bravery is rewarded with applause, as is a successful hit. The lances are blunted, so the colourful spectacle isn't meant to cause too much injury. But many suffer injuries to more than just their pride. The Diet of Mainz is also intended to unite the emperor's adversaries under the empire's colours. But the dukes are still jealous of their autonomy. They prefer to see the emperor as a first among equals, rather than an august ruler. Conferring knighthoods is a highlight of the Diet. A ceremonial oath turns thousands of honourable young men into knights, including Barbarossa's sons.
We swear to protect the Holy Church and always to be loyal to the Emperor of the Holy Empire, our supreme liege lord. We swear to protect widows and orphans and to honor women, so help us God.
Im Namen Gottes,
In the name of God, Saint Michael and Saint George, you are now knights. Be brave, stalwart and loyal. In God's honour and the Empire's defence, for the protection of the weak and in resistance to the strong.
den Starken zum Trutz.
Bear this blow and henceforth no other.
By knighting his two sons, Frederick hopes to establish who will take over from him. Henry, the eldest on the left here, is to be the next Roman German king and emperor. Even though the dukes elect the king, the emperor still wants to get a king from his own house on the throne. He wants the world to see that the House of Hohenstaufen is destined to rule. At the Diet of Mainz, the medieval dream of empire seems reborn. But dark clouds are gathering. At twilight on Holy Whitsun, a strong wind came from the west and caused many buildings to collapse. What the divine power had signalled was not taken as a good sign. These are the words of the chronicler Otto of Sankt Blasien. A devastating storm causes the backdrops of the Diet to collapse. Many are killed or injured. A bad omen, say many. And indeed, it's the beginning of the end. Aged 67, Barbarossa sets off on a crusade to Jerusalem, where the Christian West and Islam both have their sacred sites, although the city is under Muslim rule. But the emperor will never get there. He drowns in a river in the Middle East and never reaches the Holy Land at all. So in the end, what has he achieved?
I don't think the balance sheet looks too good. He ultimately had to admit defeat in his struggle with the Pope. The dukes didn't appear at his court anymore, and his Italian policies had failed. And yet we still have to say that Frederick Barbarossa quickly became a legend and went down in German history as a great man. He's put on a par with Charlemagne, no less.
In fact, posterity has made him greater than he really was. This monument in the Kyffhäuser Mountains in Thuringia was dedicated to him at the end of the 19th century. Legend has it that this is his final resting place, and that one day he will return to restore the Holy Roman Empire in all its glory. A grandiose misconception, if ever there was one.